the word on the street is that the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria is called, typically anywhere in the world, called a bad bank. And what was it set out to do to help clean the banking sector? But getting into the banking sector, AMCON realized there were a lot more bad apples in the basket than earlier realized. So, what does the latest financials of this agency tell us about the state of the economy itself and how it's struggling with the financial headwinds that it faces? Bismarck Rewane, who is a financial analyst, has put some of these interesting numbers together with some perspectives and a context, and is here to take us through this and some of the interventions that are saved jobs in the economy. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thanks to have you. Hope you had a nice holiday. What does the 2016 financial year financials of AMCON reveal?
First of all, let's understand what AMCON is about. AMCON is a stabilizer. And if you ever drive in a car on the Channels Highway here without suspension or stabilizer, you know how it's going to be. It's going to be very rough, right? Because this is a perfect example of a road that is bumpy. Now, so AMCON is a stabilizer you have to drive through a turbulent period. And 2016 was turbulent, a perfect storm for Nigeria. In 2016, we had the most challenging year in economic history. After 25 years, we had a recession. We had unemployment and underemployment at 33.6%. We had commodity currency and market crisis. We also had stock market losing 6% of its value, real estate vacancy factor up 74%, and the Naira lost about 35% of its value. Inflation peaked at about 18.5%. In that kind of circumstance, corporates do not perform very well. Corporate profitability actually declined by 17% in that year. And
AMCON,
AMCON is the
customers
are people in the financial morgue, right? So the truth is that if even the guys who are in the normal business were having that difficulty, imagine those who are in difficulty like who are AMCON clients. So AMCON obviously could not have done any better. But AMCON has a social responsibility in addition to its financial responsibility.
The financial responsibility is one key area people look at in terms of what has been achieved. If you look at a 5-year period, what has this agency been able to achieve?
First and foremost, the nominal losses were high, but the trend of performance is what is important. If you look at it, the credit loss expense, which is the major item, improved by 69% to 19 billion minus. The net operating loss improved from 234 billion to 203 billion. The total assets shrunk to 1.1 trillion by 8% market diminution in value. And also, the negative net worth of AMCON is about 4 trillion naira. In other words, it's about almost 60% of the Nigerian budget. The Nigerian budget is 7.5 trillion. AMCON's negative net worth is 4 trillion.
Aren't banks supposed to make some contributions into the AMCON's pools? Yes. So where is that money?
That money goes, it's called the sinking fund. It's used to amortize AMCON all the way from now to the sunset clause, which is in 2023, assuming that's enough to do that. But even the bank's profitability in real terms and asset values shrunk. And so we have about a significant amount going in there, but it doesn't go into the P&L of AMCON. It comes as a balance sheet item, but it's also part of the free cash flow.
So in other words, if the banks are paying 0.5%?
Yes, 0.5%.
0.5%. If you're paying that on 1 billion, and
yes.
that and what you make comes down to
about
500 million.
No, it's about 108 something billion naira, 186 billion naira, which came in through there. And it's actually increasing. But the cost, AMCON has indebtedness to the central bank of about almost 4 trillion naira, but pegged at 6% per annum. If it was market driven, then it would be a different story. But what you have to understand, AMCON was set up in 2011, while the other bad banks were set up in 2008. Iceland and Ireland have recovered. See, if the economy recovers, the AMCON can exit. But AMCON not only was set up to reduce taxpayers' burden, but also to stabilize markets. If AMCON was to sell its equities into a stock market that was shaky.
I was about to ask if you have those stocks you
no.
Why didn't AMCON sell?
No, AMCON selling into a down market. Look, Nigerian stock market was as high as 13 trillion in 2008. If you take away the 3 trillion naira of Dangote right now, we will be at about 6 trillion naira. So we'll be at about 50% of where we were in 2008. If AMCON puts its stocks into that market, the market will be down to 4 trillion naira. That would have been a complete crash.
So AMCON can actually sink the market.
Yeah,
if it throws all the shares.
So AMCON's responsibility is to stabilize the market. If anything, if they had resources to buy more, to take out of the market. So I don't look at the real estate factor. You know, the real estate vacancy factor is up 74% between 2014 and now. If AMCON was to put its real estate into the market, that will kill the market, right? If AMCON was to put its tank farms into the market, it will also kill that market. Most of these firms that you're talking about in the oil and gas sector are AMCON clients who have actually been restructured and have come back. So apart from anything else, AMCON has saved over 100,000 jobs, the extended families, and the social unrest that would have accompanied this whole process.
But that brings us to one of the highlights of what is always in the news about what AMCON has done in the aviation sector, again, because folks get to the airport, they can't get domestic flights and things like that. It's well because there's no aviation fuel, because Aero is on a losing spree, or Arik Air is almost dead, or is on a surgical table. So how much of this do you really understand as to why AMCON is still pumping money into some companies that looks like failing business?
Look, there's what we call strategic sectors, both economically and socially. The aviation industry is a strategic sector. You cannot let it go to the wall. So essentially 65% of domestic capacity between Aero and Arik are in receivership. Receivership to the extent that AMCON is supporting it. AMCON has bailed them out. AMCON is providing a line so that not only domestic carriers, but also regional. Arik has what they call O&D, origination and destination traffic, to London, Johannesburg, New York, then to all over West Africa, and then within Nigeria to the what they call the normal triangle, which is Port Harcourt, Abuja, and Lagos. So they control that business. Since AMCON took over Arik, they've reduced the network, made it more efficient. The on-time performance of Arik has improved by almost 80%. So Arik was perpetually and consistently late, and they had a knock-on effect throughout the day. Now, the disruption effect of an Arik that was not performing on the economy was significant. Just by bringing it back to normal, AMCON has provided service and helped all the other sectors to perform. Jobs. I mean, you can imagine all the pilots, engineers, technicians, cabin crew, cockpit crew, all of this were being, would have been laid off, and that's what happened. But let's take a look at Alitalia. Alitalia has been a perpetual loser.